Hi, this is Shep Altschuler, publisher of TimeSharing Today. Welcome to TimeSharing Today Media and this broadcast of TimeSharing Today Radio featuring news and views of owners and industry professionals. Investigative reporter Jeff Weir joins us today to provide his perspectives about the industry and the issue of hard sell timeshare presentations that was covered in an article recently published by the New York Times. And Diamond Resorts was the main focus of that article. Hi, Jeff. Welcome to the broadcast.
Jeff, thank you very much. I appreciate you having me on.
You're both a journalist and timeshare owners. Tell us about your background in both these areas.
That'd be fine. I started out as a journalist after college, worked for major daily newspapers for about 20 years, both in California and Washington, D.C., and then switched over to government political public relations for a few years. Went to Silicon Valley, worked in corporate America for a while as well. And now I'm back as a journalist writing about travel industry issues, specifically timeshare issues, and really focusing on issues that are important to owners.
From your perspective, what is your assessment about the overall state of the timeshare industry?
I would say it's an interesting mixed bag because the overall industry is growing slightly to about $8 billion a year in new retail sales. That represents the push by the major developers. So they're a little pleased that they're getting a recovery. On the other end of the spectrum, I think there are literally millions of timeshare owners who are aging out and getting ready to find a way to sell their timeshare, and they're finding a saturated resale market with very low values. And as a result, you've got many, many owners frustrated that they can't get rid of a timeshare that they've loved for 20 years. So as a result of that, one of the key issues in the industry is the lack of a dignified exit plan for owners who've invested great money over the years in their timeshares. And so far, the major developers, for the most part, are unwilling to address this issue or fix it. And that has given rise to all the third-party scamming companies that take advantage of owners who are desperate. So you have some good things about sort of the economics of the industry, the growth of nice resorts in many nice places. Many people still enjoy their timeshares when they use them, overwhelmingly enjoy them. However, you have this other problem of too many owners who cannot use it and no way for them to get out of it in a simple, straightforward way. And I think that will come back to haunt the development industry because it contributes to all the negative publicity that the industry tends to get, and it exacerbates the tension between developers and owners.
Now, you have written fairly extensively about owner issues at the Manhattan Club in New York City and with the Diamond Resorts. Why are these two situations of importance to owners and to our listeners?
Well, in the Manhattan Club case, owners were unable to get reservations consistently over many years while maintenance fees rose. And because of the transparency of the internet, they ended up realizing that they could get a cheaper room on Expedia for their Manhattan Club suite than if they tried to reserve a room from their timeshare. So a lot of owners got dissatisfied. As a result, there was lots of mentions on online chat forums, on Red Week in particular, or probably many others like that. People were commenting about it. And there was, most importantly, some owners finally banded together and filed suit against the Manhattan Club. And that was a couple of years ago, and that's when I got involved, covering the litigation, covering the allegations. And in the middle of that, the Attorney General of New York launched a civil investigation of fraud allegations at the club, shut down the club with a court order, and now they're expanding that investigation into a criminal fraud allegations. So I've been writing about the Manhattan Club case all along. Red Week and TimeSharing Today and the NTOA hosted an owners meeting last August in New York City to try to help owners communicate and organize. Because in the Manhattan Club, you have a high level of sophistication among the owners, but they're the most aggressive and outraged by their lack of service from the club. So that's how the Manhattan Club transpired. I also followed it because it's in the eye of the storm of the timeshare industry with deceptive sales practices and false promises made up front to owners about what would happen down the line. And from my perspective, the deceptive sales practices is the shame of the industry. It creates a lot of false expectations that can't be met later. And so the Attorney General of New York is now investigating this, and the outcome of that is going to impact all the major developers because they're going to have to clean up their act. The Diamond case is a little different. Diamond is a very big, growing, and aggressive timeshare company. They're buying older resorts where they can in nice locations. Sometimes they're doing it very upfront. Other times they're doing it overtly. And their goal is to, have thousands of resorts and millions of owners. And unfortunately for Diamond's reputation, they don't deal with owners very nicely on a consistent basis. So they have developed a reputation in the field for being aggressive and sort of unrelentingly unfriendly to owners, meaning existing owners. And again, there's litigation in Lake Tahoe, California, where the board of the Tahoe Beach and Ski Resort is resisting an effort from Diamond to effectively take over the resort. And so I visited the resort several times, talked with all the people involved, including the Diamond representatives, and it was clearly a case of another trend in the industry where a big, giant development company tries to pick off a resort in a very choice area, and their ultimate goal is to get more reservation opportunities for their members and sell more points-based programs for new owners. And the way to do that is they need good inventory at cheap prices, so they go into nice resorts or older resorts in nice locations and pick off units in default and auction sales, and suddenly they're in charge of the resort. So that is a trend in the industry. Other companies do it as well. Diamond's reputation is just a little more aggressive, if not much more aggressive than the Westins and the Marriotts and the Disneys and the others that are in the same general category of size as Diamond.
Now, there was an extensive article published recently in the New York Times pointing to hard sell timeshare presentations seem to be coming back. Diamond was a key focus of that article. You're a Diamond Resort member, and you were quoted in the article. Tell us, why was this important from your perspective?
Chet, that's a great question. Since I work in the media and you work in the media, all media could be construed as the same, but they're not. The New York Times has a voice and a reach and an influence far greater than most other newspapers in the world, and it's probably the number one. So here's the issue. I wrote several stories about the Tahoe Beach and Ski Club Diamond dynamic for both redweek.com, where I work consistently, and TimeSharing Today, where I've worked many pieces for you. I wrote about the Tahoe Beach and Ski Club in as much depth as I could. The New York Times discovered it, called me up, wanted to know if I'd be willing to cooperate with them on talking about it and maybe expanding it. And I was happy to do that. Gretchen Morgenstern is the reporter. She's a Pulitzer Prize-winning reporter for the Times and has worked there many years. So I gave her a lot of information about the people I've been talking to and phone numbers and resources. She then ran with it and did her own absolutely independent piece for me. There was no guarantee she would quote me or anything like that, but she expanded the story way beyond what I had done. She turned it into a much bigger story about Diamond. She interviewed the CEO of the company. She interviewed many owners in addition to me. And she quoted a bunch of people in different places who are having a very difficult time as owners, all with similar kinds of complaints about Diamond. And the interesting part was the Diamond CEO eventually went on the record and talked to the New York Times reporter, and he basically said everything is great at Diamond and they follow industry standards and practices and are above board and proud of their achievements. And so the New York Times story ran in the Sunday paper, and it was, as far as I know, a completely accurate story and thorough. So what happened? On Monday morning, Diamond stock drops 11% in one morning trading session. The CEO of Diamond immediately issues a letter to investors urging them to stay calm in the face of, quote, innuendo and false rumors. The New York Times CEO does not say a thing about the New York Times story, does not deny anything in it, but basically says and repeats its mantra that they are a perfectly fine and upstanding company with high owner satisfaction rates and follow industry standards. So the dramatic one-day drop in stock value for Diamond is 100% attributable to the New York Times story, and it shows you what can happen in a larger sense if major timeshare issues get into the national media. It will affect stock prices of the major companies and the perspectives of owners and others throughout the world about timeshare. So that's why when I suggest that the major developers need to develop exit strategies or other owner-friendly programs, those are the antidote to bad publicity, such as Diamond accrued 2 weeks ago.
Now, that article quotes the experiences of owners and then contrasts the perceptions presented by the Diamond executives. So just talk a little bit about that disparity that you alluded to that was really present in that article.
Well, the difficulty that many owners experience is this: if you're a Diamond owner, and I am a Diamond owner, when you visit your resort, you get a hard sell to buy more, and it's a very relentless hard sell. They will not take no easily. And I've attended several of these presentations over the last couple of years, so I'm up to speed on what they do and how they do it. One of Diamond's business practices is to focus on resales and additional sales to existing owners. It's a big chunk, like nearly 50% of their sales. And right now they're very proud of it. However, I've been to sales presentations hosted by Diamond where everyone in the room was 80 years old. And I was personally offended that they would try to resell more timeshares to people who can no longer travel or whose travel window is very limited. But they do that, and they do it deliberately. I've seen it, and as I said at the last presentation I went to, I was the youngest guy in the room, and I'm at retirement age. So I thought it was a bad business practice, but it's one they go forward with day in and day out at most of their resorts. The other side of the coin is the New York Times reporter interviewed a bunch of owners at different resorts who all had similar kind of problems that were not being fixed. And they were finding a deaf ear at Diamond, and they were feeling burned by the company that persuaded them to buy a timeshare in the first place. And that's a consistent experience that I have run into in talking to Diamond owners in Hawaii, California, Phoenix, Florida, where even though they like their timeshare experience, they don't like the idea of being hounded by salespeople all the time, and they resent the continual intrusion, and they really resent the hard sell, particularly if they're on vacation. So that's just part of Diamond's DNA as a company, and I don't think they make any apologies about it, but I do think it has a way ultimately of turning off owners and it getting out in the public, such as it did through this New York Times piece, which exposed practices that Diamond says are very upstanding.
They take the position that their business model and practices is not a true reflection of what these owners are saying about that business model and practices. Is that the correct?
Diamond has two messages. The owners, the messages are: hope you have vacation, buy more timeshare points. To the investment community, which is the most important one to Diamond, really, they want their stock price to go up. So they're going to tell the investment community that they're making as much money as possible in a way that is justifiable from a business practice. But the message to investors is that they are very proud that they are reselling to existing owners at a clip of 40% or more. To owners, that's sort of a red flag, because the health of any individual resort is maintained by the maintenance fees. And if you have too many olders that are beginning to age out and drop out, maintenance fees dry up amongst those owners, and the existing remaining owners have to pick up the slack. And that's a dangerous sign for any resort where they get delinquencies at double digits, which is common in many areas these days. So the message from Diamond to investors is that everything is good, we're making money, we're proud of our business practices, and bottom line, no government agency is regulating us beyond what they're doing initially. The message to owners is have a great vacation and buy more points. Those two things fit together like pieces of a puzzle. But I guarantee you, if the rank-and-file Diamond owners read the annual reports published by Diamond, they would be incensed by what they read. One example, Jeff, of the disparity between how owners would view Diamond and how investors would view Diamond is the profit center maintenance fees. Diamond takes 20% of all maintenance fees collected as profit, and then they manage the resort with the other remaining maintenance fees. But as an individual owner, if I knew that my maintenance fees of $1,000 to Diamond included $200 that went directly through the corporate offices as profit, I would be annoyed by that. I would rather have 100% of my maintenance fees poured back into the resort for refurbishing and better TVs and better rugs and better beds and better Wi-Fi. So I think the messages to investors are the ones that Diamond is most concerned about, That's why they wrote a letter to investors following the story and why they are running as fast away from that story as they can, claiming it's all false rumor and innuendo.
And where does executive compensation fit into this mix?
I'm not an expert on what the CEO of the company is making this year. I know last year when they bought out the former CEO, Mr. Klubeck, I think his buyout package was $16 million. And I'm sure his compensation on an annual basis was less than that, but included lots of stock and diamonds so that, if things get cashed out, they're much more. But I think it's safe to say with a company like Diamond, all the major executives are making millions of dollars per year, and a lot of it is totally tied to the profit margins and also tied to stock prices, which is why that company and all the other public companies roll over in bed first thing in the morning and check their stock price.
Would you say that Diamond is unique, or these situations are prevalent throughout the developer sales presentation community?
My experience, and I have attended presentations by other companies, my experience is this, that Diamond is much more aggressive than the other big-name timeshare companies. Their personnel sometimes are not as informed, but they're still hard sale, car salesman type folks. The other companies tend to have a little more sophisticated sales team. So I think Diamond is very happy with its practices. I think the other companies are a little embarrassed when they read a story about Diamond because they then get asked, is that the way you are too? And I guarantee you they all share many things in common on sales practices. It's just a matter of degree, how aggressive and how difficult it is for owners to get out of the room or buyers when they say no. So it's a general practice that throughout the industry, hard sales practices, and in some cases even deceptive sales practices, are absolutely legal. The problem is that owners or buyers never know what they're really buying at the time of sale, and they have to experience it for a number of years to really understand how the timeshare experience works, and then they find out this is either a good idea or a terrible mistake. They never find out within the rescission period. So all of the industry pays attention when there's a newspaper story about a big company and their hard sell tactics, because it reflects on all of them. One thing that did not happen is that no one came out publicly to defend Diamond. I didn't see a letter. I didn't see a press release from ARDA. I didn't see anything. So that means the rest of the industry is ducking under the desk and letting Diamond just take a pounding on this one story, and they're hoping to resurface in a couple of weeks and pretend it all didn't happen. So I think there's a culpability throughout the industry for sales practices that are sometimes bad, and also definite culpability for not solving owner issues for long-time owners.
With all the owners, hundreds of thousands of owners in the Diamond program, there are a significant number of them are happy owners, and they're happy with the management, they're happy with the culture, they're happy, being owners. So are we talking about, and maybe you can't gauge it, but are we talking about like a small percentage of this group are disaffected by these presentations, or is it a bigger problem throughout the Diamond community?
Difficult to gauge because there's no data on that, but I've attended enough of these things to, when you see the proverbial little old lady and her husband on crutches buy another timeshare, it makes you cringe because they're not going to travel there, and they're going to have to pass a maintenance fee bill on to somebody else, and if they don't, they'll be hounded by a company. So that's just no good. That's a bad, moral compass for everybody. And in Diamond's case, they have a business model that's profitable. They also have lots of owners, and they're buying new resorts, and they're taking advantage of consolidation in the industry to affiliate with more resorts to provide a bigger inventory network. But the bottom line still is timeshares are easy to get and very difficult to get rid of. And they're expensive over time to own, and if you don't use them, it's a total albatross of regret that you ever bought. So that's a pretty common timeshare experience for people throughout. The only saving grace is most people like their timeshares when they can use them. That's why getting a good reservation and a good resort is really key to keeping things stable. Otherwise, you'd have a revolt all over the place.
Well, I appreciate your taking the time to talk to us about this today. And if any of our listeners who want to get in touch with you, of course, they can communicate back through TimeSharing Today at staff@TSToday.com. But how would they be able to reach you directly at Red Week?
I have an easy email to Jeff@redweek.com. And that's the simplest way for anybody to contact me, and I welcome comments.
Thank you, Jeff, for providing your insights. And this concludes this broadcast of TimeSharing Today Radio. You know, at TimeSharing Today, your opinions about timesharing really do count. Please contact us at staff@tstoday.com if you would like to comment on today's interview or if you would like to suggest a topic for a future program. Until next time, happy timesharing.